Hello and welcome back to the NMMA. This marks the first period of 2017 free agency, but just a couple of updates to fill you in on the biggest changes that have happened since the last time you tuned in. First off, we had an extremely exciting draft, as we'll recap shortly, that involved several teams trading up, including the Golden State Warriors, who traded up from pick 8, sending 2 future firsts to pick 3 to take Bam Adebayo. My Houston Rockets moved off of John Henson, big draft hit, Emmanuel Mudiay, and a future 2021 Raptors or Houston best of pick to trade for pick 6 that we used to bring in none other than Lonzo Ball. After that, the New Orleans Pelicans finally made a big Bosh trade, moving off of both Gerald Henderson and Chris Bosh to bring in Zach Randolph, which only gave way for a massive set of moves. RJ and the Bucks did exactly what RJ and the Bucks do best, and they are blowing it up, baby. That is right. They traded basically everyone. The Zach Randolph trade that landed Zach Randolph in New Orleans gave way to a huge, huge trade where the Milwaukee Bucks moved Kyrie Irving, Chris Middleton, and Sean Livingston all to New Orleans for Tomas Satoransky, Dario Saric, Josh Jackson, who was just drafted, I believe, like 4 or 5 overall, Zach Randolph, who had just been acquired, as well as, what is that? 4 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks. Hot dog. Not only that, but the Milwaukee Bucks also traded Serge Ibaka to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Paul Millsap and Nikola Vucevic. And also they traded Jabari Parker for a future first. So things are going to look very, very different in Milwaukee, and they now have a huge war chest of picks to work with. So, additionally, outside of that, we have huge announcement. We have fixed the cap issue inside the game. That is right. The biggest plague of the entire NMMA since season 2, where we have had to track all of our cap in the sheet because we could not control the increase in cap. Your boy Croonin has fixed it, and we are officially going to be working inside of the game. This is incredible news because that means that you will no longer have to be updating your sheet, and we will no longer have as big of delays in the offseason. It's going to be massive for the league moving forward. That does mean that we did have a cap increase, which was not predicted, where we had 91.14 million last year. I think that 94.15 million. We have now inflated by 5 million to about 99.1 million. So everybody has a little bit more cap space, and all of that is going to be tracked in the game, which means I am also, later on in this video, going to be able to show everybody's most affordable free agents by position, which is going to be huge. So without further ado, let's jump into the draft results. As you can see, Jason Tatum was taken number 1 overall to the Miami Heat, who are now absolutely loaded with youth after that KD trade. They drafted not just Tatum, but also De'Aaron Fox, and who else was it? Oh, OG Anunoby, of course. So that adds to the extremely exciting young core of Jamal Murray, Pascal Siakam, Malcolm Brogdon, Michael Carter-Williams, just Edmund Wagner. Don't want to forget him. So very, very loaded team in Miami and an extremely exciting future to watch. Had a lot of other big picks here, too. For the second round, I'm pretty high on Chris Boucher. Excited to see how he ends up working out. Spider-Man himself, Tom Holland, goes to the Albuquerque Axolotl. We may have a little bit of war between the several guards that are in Albuquerque, between Tom Holland, who else? DeJounte Murray, C.J. McCollum, and Mayor Matthew. A civil war, maybe. Okay, next I'm going to show cap holds. Cap holds are going to work a little bit differently now that we are no longer tracking from the sheet. So you will just be taking a look inside the video and releasing these as you need. Remember to keep any cap holds that you may need to maintain bird rights or restricted free agency. I've already gone through and extended qualifying offers to any restricted free agents that people may want to keep based on the decisions that you put in your team chat. But cap holds are still necessary to maintain on top of that to keep restricted free agency or bird rights. So we have a couple of rebrandings as well, too. A lot of teams opted in. We had a couple of manual ones as well, such as the Seattle Supersonics that have that beautiful new logo. Okay. Next, I'm going to show rosters for attributes. So this will include all of your newly drafted rookies. John Henson, of course, the new highest ranked 76er, as they enter another age of their rebuild. Very excited to see what he can do there as their #1 option. If he is that, it's a good chance that a little bit of Buddy Hield prog will still have him being the top scorer. The new look Milwaukee Bucks. That Serge Ibaka trade has not been entered just yet, but it will be shortly. Fear not, that will be going through. I just wanted to ensure that we get to a point of time where I could actually do the Vooch extension that was a part of the sign and trade. 2K is very obnoxious where they don't allow you to do contract extensions at all times. So they just take the page away for a good chunk of the offseason. Rodney Hood, a most improved player. Looking quite good and happy in Utah. Very curious to see how the 1-2 punch works with him and Lauri Markkanen. The Orlando Magic have a very short roster. They should be looking to make some signings with their MLE in this offseason. Of course, the Mavericks, heard through the grapevine that they may be rebranding very shortly, but they have a very exciting young offensive core between newly drafted Donovan Mitchell, drafted #2 overall, but the #1 ranked prospect, to combine with Brandon Ingram and Devin Booker. Curious to see what they add around the fringes to bolster their defense, since none of those scorers are all that great defensively. But one has to think that that is going to be a very exciting young core for years to come. There we have Kyrie Irving along with Bradley Beal. The dynamite backcourt in New Orleans as they return. Kyrie Irving returns to the Southwest Division. He'll be playing his former Houston Rockets 4 times a year now. Houston Rockets now loaded with a lot of youth after our big pivot last season. The Lopez Seneschal dominated Timberwolves. Very curious to see if they make any sort of big moves in the offseason. Montreal Voyagers. They made 2 big draft picks in Markelle Fultz and John Collins. Should be a very fun pick and roll to watch in the future. And they are now out of the dark ages. They officially own their picks moving forward and have a very exciting future ahead of them. Big shout out to Dilks for weathering it through that. It's taken months. Okay, next let's take a look at roster sizes. Remember that after the second period of free agency, so not this one, but the one that comes after this one, you want to make sure that the players that is listed down at the bottom here is 15 or lower. If it is over 15, then 2K is automatically going to cut players once we move to the start of the season, and you do not want that to happen, as they may be making a choice that you don't want. So, for example, even before free agency right here, the Philadelphia 76ers are all the way at 16 players. So if they sign anybody, they're definitely going to have to be making a couple of hard decisions in who to cut. Looks like the Bulls have a lot of signings to do with only 7 players rostered. Okay, the Lakers are also in the same sort of situation as Philly. Oh, and the Nets. Wow, the Nets are up to 18 players. They're going to have to cut a minimum of 3, and that's even before free agency. Got to be careful with all those team options that you pick up to games. Okay, so it looks like we have 3 teams that even before free agency are over. So make sure to get those in order before you sign any players. All right, next we're going to take a look at cap tables. And here's where you'll see for the first time that $99.1 $1 million salary cap has been implemented, and you can see your cap space here at long last. So the 76ers are $17.13 million over the actual cap. The Axolotl just have a little bit of cap space, as well as their MLE. The very shallow roster here in Chicago. You see Paul Millsap is still on the roster here, but he and Vucevic will be traded for Ibaka. Very excited for that Ibaka-Harden reunion. Who knows? Maybe they'll bring in Russell Westbrook someday. Honestly, I hope Vancouver holds on to him, though. I still believe in building around Westbrook. That is a beautiful cap table for the Hawks here. Nobody over 20 million. An extremely loaded roster. They made it to the conference finals to unfortunately then get swept by LeBron and CP3, who went on to win the title. But I think they're only going to be better with time, and they only had, what, like 10, 12 games or so to build chemistry with Paul George. They're looking great at the end there, so I think they'll be back with new punches to spare. Remember that sometimes dead cap is bugged, and so let me know if that is the case. There's no way for me to remove it, unfortunately, but if it is substantial, then we can factor it into your cap space. We would just have to manually turn off the salary cap and use the sheet in order to calculate it. So, come to think of it, the sheet may still come in handy occasionally. The massive New Jersey Nets roster here, 18 players rostered. Sean Livingston, such an underrated part of the Kyrie acquisition. He's going to be so great as a sixth man. Was he a former sixth man of the year? I can't remember. I know he was very important in that role for the early part of the Warriors dynasty in real life. Barely 400,000 salary cap. Cap space for the Spurs. Also, absolutely drained roster here for the Phoenix Suns. I don't know how. That doesn't make any sense there, huh? There may be an issue with the salary cap because they are not at 127 million total. That's weird. Everybody else seems to be working. It's just the Suns. Well, that's okay. We'll figure it out and send him his manual cap space. It may just be this view that's bugged. We'll see soon enough what the Suns can afford. Yeah, that's very strange. Everybody else seems to be accurate. Just eyeballing the math here. Okay, at any rate, without further ado, let's jump in and take a look at the free agents. So first off, we're just going to sort by overall. Of course, a lot of old heads dominate the top free agents here. Dirk Nowitzki, Pau Gasol, Carmelo Anthony, Amari Stoudemire, all big playoff performers. But reaching the final part of the twilight of their career, Oscar Schmidt Jr. now a restricted free agent despite being 35 because of how old he came into the league. Curious to see what the future holds for him. We had a couple of big player option declinations. Dirk for sure, Patrick Beverley. I think there were at least like 2 other large ones too that I'm forgetting. So we'll scroll here down to about 72 overall, probably through the 72s, unless the list gets very long. And then we'll break it down by position as well as what's affordable for each team. Wow, Andrew Bynum, man, how the mighty have fallen. He was well into the 80s and looked great in his early 20s. He's only 29 now and has already regressed to a 75 overall. That seems to possibly have been hard-coded into him, considering that's kind of similar to the fall-off that he had in real life. Darko Milicic. Sir Richard Holmesington, the 14th. Don't sleep on him. I mean, or do. He's not exactly a world-breaking player. But the memes. Okay. So next, let's take a look by age. So as I usually do, I'm going to scroll down here. Let's see. Let's take a look at this way. We'll scroll down through 22-year-olds, and then we'll go all the way over so that you can see all their attributes. Remember to always be taking potential letter grade with a huge grain of salt. It differs quite a bit between scouts, and as we have determined, it does change between seasons, even with the same scout. So it's much better to be taking a holistic approach, incorporating all of the attributes in a player's profile to try to determine what sort of archetype they're going to have, seeing if that fits your team, and then taking that into account for how prog might go. Potential is not the only determination as to how prog pans out. A lot of 22-year-olds, a lot of garbage 22-year-olds. Anybody water under the mouth for Kay Washburn, a 64 overall point guard? Well, here he is for you. Okay. If you have a very high potential letter grade, there's a decent chance that will hit. But I would say anything that's like B or below, there's a decent crapshoot. If you got the roster space, though, it's never a bad idea to take a swing. See if one of these flyers pan out. Alan Forbes with our first B+. Couple more here, too, with Looney. It's Stanley Johnson? No way. It's got to be a different S. Johnson. Nick Landry, my beloved. We declined his team option. That 20-year-old man, I believe in him. Okay. Now we're going to show affordable free agents for each team. We're going to be showing the top of the list. Carmelo Anthony, man, had a couple of somewhat struggling years in Indiana as a play-in team. Still some good performances, though. I'm very curious to see where he enters for the next stage of his career. Okay, it seems that the Suns can afford these people, so it was just the cap sheet view for whatever reason that was bugged. That's good to know. So we can operate within with the salary cap turned on while we're entering offers. No idea why that was an issue. Every single other salary cap view was not bugged, so that is strange. But 2K works in mysterious ways. I tell you what. Okay, so now we will show the max amount of money that every player can afford, or a team can afford. So there's 5.55 million for Of course, different players warrant different caps. Sorry, different maxes. So this insane 34.69 million max that you see for Dirk, that is not going to be the case for other players. A lot of that is due to the amount of years that he's played and his accolades. I will make an announcement that'll include what the different maxes and like standard contracts are. That may not come out until later tonight, though. Need to do a little bit of math and make sure that that's checked. Okay, so hopefully having that view will make things a little bit easier for you. Okay, so next, let's show free agents by position. Starting with point guards. So Andre Iguodala, of course, set to a point guard right here. Of course, he's much more used to playing small forward or shooting guard. That was due to the very interesting rotations that B. Harp runs in Orlando. Oh, and I guess carried over to New York Knicks as well. We'll go through 75 overalls for each position. Ben McLemore is leading. Oh, I guess he's a restricted free agent, though, so not a ton of shooting guards here. Looks like Wayne Ellington is the leading unrestricted free agent. Big Mello, of course, leading the small forwards. It's crazy, actually, how shallow shooting guards are compared to the other positions. Dirk Nowitzki leading power forwards. Please send him to a contender. He has not won a ring yet because the 2011 ring did not go to his team, despite making the finals and getting so close. Somebody needs to get Dirk his ring, or else he may not be a top 20 player. Especially now that someone needs to beat LeBron. Okay. All right, now let's take a look at contract extensions. So make sure to recall that you get 2 contract extensions during the regular season, but just 1 here in the offseason. So make sure that you use that smart as I click on Marcus Smart. The exception are for rookie extensions, where as it currently stands, that is unrestricted, where you can extend as many rookies as you want. Those rookie extensions only happen between year 3 and 4 after opting into their team option, though. They cannot be extended prior, and anytime after, you will not be able to extend them as well, and they will be forced to enter restricted free agency. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope willing to remain with the New York Knicks, as well as Big Tony Parker. Brandon Knight and Monta Ellis, of course, I forgot to mention him, that the Lakers traded for him. That's going to be a stellar backcourt between the two of them. Will they be able to make a playoff run? We will see. Jokic willing to extend for the Pacers, along with real-life teammate Aaron Gordon. That is huge news for TJG. Very exciting stuff. Going to make sure that he extends. Clint Capella, of course, traded for by the New Orleans Pelicans as well. Forgot that he was brought in from Detroit. I think it was Jakob Poeltl and like a pick. Clint Flores and Jonas Valanciunas. And Darren Williams. Okay. That will wrap things up for this. So we're going to probably set the deadline for tomorrow night. Probably relatively late. I won't be entering it until late into the evening. There's a chance that we'll extend it to Monday. I'll need to sync with the mods first. But until then, happy signing.